So, good morning, everybody. Taxation is theft. I know it's morning. It's not really morning, but I felt like saying that anyway. Desarae, welcome.
Thank you.
How's it going?
Fabulous. How about you?
Pretty good.
Awesome.
So you are, for anyone watching who doesn't know, Desiree's been a huge part of the LP Texas, helping candidates and all kinds of other stuff. I'm just gonna brag about you for a couple minutes. And I actually got to work with her on John McAfee's campaign a couple of years ago when he ran for president. And we actually still work together a lot because she is she's crazy. She just works with candidates all day. Like, she's like, fuck the rest of the world. I just want to help candidates out. That's all I care about, which is really pretty awesome. And she's got some of her own stuff going on too, and a lot of really interesting stuff going on. So where do we start? I guess first tell me, because I kind of asked this of everybody, what made you become a libertarian? What was your turning point? Or were you born with a protest sign in your hand, or with an End the Fed shirt?
I think I was born with a protest sign in my hand. I mean, I remember back when my parents were still married and they divorced when I was 3, like, I remember seeing, like, hippies when I was little and going, look, mom, hippies, like I was, whoa. But honestly, what really kind of clued me into, I mean, we all kind of grow up knowing the government is corrupt, but what really clued me into, oh my gosh, I have to do something about it, is the West Memphis 3 case. And that got me more political minded. But as far as the Libertarian Party, Ron Paul brought me in. He's a crazy old guy running on some pretty radical ideas, and I fell in love with those ideas, and have continued to obsessively learn and evolve, and here we are.
Awesome. I don't know if you've got some big fanatics or just a bunch of stalkers, but you're getting a shit ton of likes over here.
Yay!
Looks like
probably just some really nice friends.
Looks like Clayton's going crazy on the button over there.
Clayton. I knew it was Clayton.
Awesome. So you're a Ron Paul baby. I guess we need like an official word for that. What do we call us Ron Paul people? I guess let's talk about your where do we go? There's so many things to talk about with you. Let's talk about your race first. You're running for U.S. Congress.
Yeah, I didn't really ever actually want to run for office at all. I really like working on campaigns, but I really liked being behind the scenes. And I worked on, as you know, Cory Watkins' campaign when he was running for the governor nomination in Texas, and was really inspired by him and his continuous passionate action. And working on McAfee's campaign, working on Cory's campaign, both of those things kept pushing me outside of the box and outside of my comfort zone. So I mean, here we are. There was somebody in my county party who was trying to recruit congressional delegates at the last minute, and recently you had Melina Baker on, and I watched that. That was really good. I'm kind of the same as her. Like, I didn't really want to run an active campaign, but the more I kind of delved into it, I really do want to, and I'm pretty excited about it, actually.
Awesome. Yeah, that's kind of I guess the first time I ran, I was talked into it like that, and it's interesting once you tell a couple people that you're running that are kind of like, maybe close friends and family, and then they get excited about it, then you realize kind of like, well, hey, maybe I should do more than just be on the ballot.
Right.
And so I see a lot of people doing that. We also see a lot of duds, but I think that is kind of a problem that we have in the party, but I'm going to say it's your fault, because if you would have stepped up sooner, that would have taken the space of a dud that we had last year, and we didn't have to recruit someone else. But it really is like, you know, the most unsuspecting people are the ones who turn out to be the good candidates, and that's kind of I don't know. I guess that probably says something about, you know, who do we identify as politicians? Like, I'm not a
Yeah.
politician. Why would I want to run? Well, that's exactly
Yeah.
the kind of politician we need.
Agreed.
So
Wholeheartedly. I mean,
yeah,
Corey Watkins didn't want to run either, but I mean, he's more of a front lines activist kind of guy. But we talked him into it, and I feel like even if he didn't win the nomination, he ran an exemplary campaign and set the bar really high. And a couple of us, Clayton Hunt, myself, and probably some others, have wanted to keep that movement going.
right. Yeah, and it's you know, it seems like even if you're just doing activism, if you can say, oh yeah, like I'm not just doing this to, you know, legalize weed or change, you know, one
Right.
policy, which, you know, if you get stuck in the trap of kind of like, you know, joining one avenue of activism, that's kind of where you end up. But if you can say I'm running for an office, now it's like, oh, like people start asking you, well, what about your other positions? And you're kind of forced to say,
Mm-hmm.
well, and then you have the principled libertarians who are basically, well, as long as you're not doing any harm to anyone else, you know, whatever you want to do is really okay. Um,
Yeah.
so that's pretty interesting, and of course, you know, we're kind of the most consistent that way. So we kind of always win when it comes down to that. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. So um, you've got this this Peace and Love Texas. Tell me a little bit about that. I already know, but tell everybody else.
Well, I wanted to, if I was going to run an active campaign, I wanted to make a statement. And I feel like, I mean, libertarians are different. I feel like if we try to emulate the old parties, we fail. And I wanted to do something different. Again, inspired by other activists that I admire, wanted to kind of create something that could last. So, even beyond November. And Peace and Love Texas to me is kind of like a peaceful revolution candidacy and then beyond. And for me, it's about kind of changing the way people think and using the megaphone of running for Congress to let people know, like, hey, libertarians care about you. We're the champion of the underdog, because more than half the population doesn't vote. So it's something I do want to continue, some, advocacy that I would like to continue even beyond November, and kind of, keep an ongoing thing going. And I really, I just want to change the world. That's what we all want.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, and what's interesting is when you I totally forgot what I was just gonna say. I
I
totally
do
just
that
had a
all the
brain
time.
fart. I had it, and then I was like, wait, I'm gonna let you finish, and then I just lost it.
Oh, you should have interrupted because I was losing my train of thought. So,
Funny how that works.
mm.
See, we shouldn't have gotten stoned before the show started. I'm just kidding. Um, so yeah, it's really interesting to see a lot of what everybody's doing. You know, we have well, I guess for one thing, you went with the peace and love thing, so you're back to your original hippie story, which is pretty awesome.
True.
You
I don't
know,
think I've ever told that, incidentally.
what's funny is like so around I want to say like around 2008 when I started paying attention to anything. Um,
Mm.
and you know, this was like after the election, after I hate admitting this, but after I voted for Obama, um, before I heard about Ron Paul, but I hated Bush and I hated the wars, and
Yep.
I was like, something has got to change. And then I started seeing this bumper sticker, "Where have all the hippies gone?" And and
Oh, wow.
you've seen that one, right?
I haven't,
It's yeah, and
surprisingly.
it's in California of all places, but I guess they're they're left leaning progressive,
Yeah.
so I guess they're kind of hippies out that way. But I saw that and I was like, yeah, why? Like that kind of got me into thinking like this was 10 years ago. Like why is activism like amongst my friends? If I would have said anything about like political activism, they will it's like you call someone a hippie and you make jokes and it's like it's almost it's become, or at least in that time, or maybe it was just the people I was hanging around with, it was socially unacceptable to be a political activist because you were like some kind of a nerd or a hippie or some weirdo or some stoner outcast, like all these different things. And it's interesting, and I wonder how much like because I know the hippies were kind of outcast even in the 60s and 70s, but how much of that is the result of more like propaganda campaigns where I mean
Oh yeah.
that's what the drug war was. Let's label all these stoners as criminals.
Yep.
How much of that still plays or shaped what we have today, where it's like a weird thing to be a hippie or an activist?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the people that kind of fall into that, more hippie-ish kind of way of thinking loathe politics, and rightfully so, um, and tend to avoid it as well. So I think even kind of the hippie activist isn't all that common anymore. You do have some in our party, and I'm sure there are some in the Democrat Party, but it's not like as common as it would have been in the 60s, 70s, or even the 80s,
Right.
as far as I know.
And it's the whole like the peace and love thing is really kind of ridiculed as if well it's right, it's like okay, like maybe that's why we have so many failed marriages these days, because people are afraid to talk about love, and maybe that's why we're in so many wars, because people are afraid to talk about peace. And it's like it's why is that? It's just so weird, because I think if you ask anybody, do you want to go to war? No one's gonna say yes, even though
Right.
they might be like kind of that macho kind of person that wants to. They like even those kind of people don't really admit to it. They just try to find some excuse for it. Um,
Right.
but
And those
it's
people would be few and far between anyway. So,
yeah, it's I don't know. It's just really interesting the way that society kind of shapes what we're allowed to talk about or what we're supposed to talk about in public. I've had so many people tell me, you know, like I I used to go to bars like all the time and just hang out and start talking to people about politics, and people told me, it's rude to talk about politics in public.
uh-huh.
And my usual response just became, well, did you ever think that maybe that's why the country's so fucked up, because everyone's afraid to talk about it?
It's a good
And
answer.
I usually shut them up, but it's and I get it. Those people were there to like have a good time and everything, but it's I'm here on Earth to have a good time, and I keep getting robbed every day. So it's fuck me for trying to do something about it.
Well, politics is kind of getting to be a little more sexy these days, though, because Trump's president. So you've got this lunatic who says and does abhorrent, just terrible things, who is leading our country, and suddenly everybody's rebellious spirit has been kind of reawoken, and it's a little easier now to talk about it. But I mean, I found for the most part that's true. We're taught that discussing politics or religion is rude, and I would really like to know where that comes from, because I mean, those are things that tend to uh, serve as mass control, and um,
Right.
maybe that's why we're taught that they're rude, because we don't want to go outside of this little box
Right. It's like
that we're taught
it's
to live
like
in.
burning books. Like, don't talk. We don't want you to be educated on this subject. We don't want you to dissent. Like, what? Like, even at bless you. Even at
I
work,
get
there's there's the philosophy of don't let your employees start chit-chatting, because then they'll never get back to work, and then they'll start, saying they'll start discussing things like, why aren't we getting paid more, why this, why, and why are we being treated so unfairly? And so in those types of organizations, you see like heavy control over the employees, because you don't want that. And so yeah, exactly, where does that come from? And does that come from people who are trying to control us, and our I guess our thoughts on social policies, so that they can be in control, to kind of disarm us as some sort of resistance.
Well, and to keep us divided, and to, I mean, you're either on one end of the spectrum or you're not. That's why we're in a two-party system. So, most people don't fit in that. And that's why, less than half the population votes. So, you've got some people that genuinely don't care, but why don't they care? They were kind of made not to care, I'm sure. I think about this stuff a lot, actually, and what the tentacles of the means of control are that keep us, where we don't have a voice. And I think about it a lot. And I always find myself kind of engaging in circular logic. But it's something that, we need people that deviate from the norm. Okay, so one of my favorite quotes is a Frank Zappa quote: without deviation from the norm, progress is not possible. And that's true. To stifle innovation and to stifle individual thought is extremely harmful to human beings. And we're seeing the results of that. And to me, I think it's extremely sad. And that's another part of the reason why I'm running for office is, yeah, think for yourself, do for yourself, be free. Don't do what you're told to do and just stick with the status quo, and then get your dinner at the drive-thru, and, because you're always on the go.
And that's interesting too, because I see that manifest in other ways. Like, I mean, I have a lot of friends that from when I was really young to even recently, who they think I'm crazy because I have.
You are.
Thanks. I have a job that's different because I refuse to take a job that was the same. I live in a weird place. My lifestyle is just total. Like, people think I'm crazy for doing the things that I do, and you do some of the same. Like, you were like, I want to live by a lake, so you moved out there, and like most people are like, no, I want to live in a box somewhere that's like,
yeah.
Like, and then it's funny because like I try to like tell these people, look, you don't have to do this. Like, you can do anything you want with your life. Like, the possibilities are literally limitless.
Right.
But it's really hard to break out of that, because that's, it's 12 years of public indoctrination schools saying, finish school, get a job, go to college, follow the rule book. And especially when you have parents reinforcing that, because that's what they did, and their life was a little bit better because they had a regular job and some money. And yeah, having money beats being poor, but it's like you don't realize you're confining yourself into this box, and you're limiting what you can do with your life, and you can do so much more. And even if you have like, a lot of people, like, they have the job, some people will say, I'm gonna do some political activism outside of that, whereas others will say, no, I'm gonna raise a family and take my dogs to the park every day and ballet school and all this other stuff, which, and not to knock those choices, but it's, as long as you understand that it's a choice, and that it doesn't have to be that way. You can do anything you want with your life.
Yeah, and there are some people that do all of the above somehow. I don't know when those people sleep, but
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, something my husband and I talk about all the time is neither of us are like the 9-to-5 types. We're not, we're just not the kind of people that are happy and feel any quality of life, getting up, getting dressed, getting ready, going into an office, sitting in a cubicle, doing mindless tasks. Some people are, well, okay, let me back up. Most, if not all, people are actually born to create and to do and to be active and put joy into the world. And we're in cubicles, and that, I mean, yeah, I'll admit, I even thought you were weird when you said you would never get a job where you had to uh, sign a W-2 or, whatever, but I freaking respect it. I think it's great. And you found a way to make it work, and I love that.
I got suckered into that. I did have to sign one, but
Oh, well.
but I'm still working on figuring out the whole, because that's another thing I told you that I kind of got re-inspired on how to basically that the tax laws don't apply to most Americans. And so I did meet some new interesting people they've still been researching this whole thing when I lost track of it, and they've got a lot of updated information, because it's the thing. It's like, if you're in class and you don't understand the question, you can go ask the teacher and hopefully they'll have an answer for you. But when you're trying to understand the tax code, the only people you can go ask are the tax accountants who were trained by the IRS, and they're just going to tell you, no, everybody has to pay and there's no way out of it.
Right.
So, but of course, it turns out that's actually not how it is. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent there. That's my excuse for signing a W-2 or W-4 or whatever. Yeah. So back to what we were talking about. Like, what's really interesting is, I see people talk about, I don't want to have a job. I just want to go live in the woods, live off the land, blah 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 blah. But I can't. It's just not that easy. Well, there's two things that I see that are holding people back from doing that. One is the knowledge, because they don't teach you that in school. All you were taught how to do was to get a job and work for somebody else and live in a city environment.
Right.
And
Anthill. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then the other thing is that the other thing that's holding you back is, even if you don't buy anything, so you don't need money, you still need money to pay the government, because it's like, even if you find your little plot of land in the woods, you still got to pay tax.
Right.
Even if you're growing tomatoes and you give those tomatoes to your neighbor so he can like build up a little roof for you to sleep under, they want to tax that. So it's like,
Yeah.
no matter how much you try to get out of it, you are literally forced into it by government. So I don't know. That's all that. Hey, Arvin's watching. Hey, Arvin.
Hi, Arvin.
So let's talk about. I guess he heard us talking about schools. Maybe that's why he joined in.
He zeroed in. They're talking about schools.
He felt it. So let's talk about psychedelics. How does that play into your activism, and kind of give me your whole history on it? Because I can neither confirm nor deny that I may or may not have tried shrooms once or twice in the past. But tell me about it, because a lot of people think it's just something that hippies do to take drugs and trip out and just sit on the couch and eat Cheetos, kind of like weed except stronger. But tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, excuse me. It's funny that I actually didn't get back into, I had tried shrooms and LSD and various other things when I was a teenager, but it's really not the same. So I've got issues with depression, like most people do, and I actually had a friend tell me that shrooms were really good for that, that it kind of repairs your synapses and actually makes you feel better, improves your quality of life. And I'd been trying to talk my husband into doing it with me for a long time, and he finally agreed. And I'd been missing out. It was I felt extremely childlike. They say, oh, don't look in the mirror. Well, I did, and I had a really good conversation with myself. I can understand why you shouldn't. I forgive you, to myself. I don't know, it was good. It was really therapeutic, and it really, like, colors were brighter for weeks after that. Just my whole quality of life and sense of being was so much improved. And, I started doing some more reading, and I found out even LSD, which I didn't think was like that, was also could also treat depression. Um, I mean, really, with psychedelics, all you're doing is, a lot of people like to drink beer, myself included. A lot of people like to smoke weed. We all need a head change from time to time. Um, and just to kind of, like, dial it back a little and get back in tune with ourselves. And for me, that's what psychedelics is. I haven't tried LSD again, since I was a kid, but I may or may not one of these days. I don't know. It's a felony right now. So, but for me, I feel, I mean, how we both feel about the drug war in general. Um, Weed gets a lot of attention, and it should. I mean, it's still not completely legal for medicinal or recreational purposes. That's a crime. But I kind of want to start shifting the focus to psychedelics. I want all drugs legal, but I'm not going to go around talking about heroin. I don't know anything about it. For all I know, it's the greatest thing ever. I too have preconceived notions that I've been programmed with it, like the rest of the world, but except for those that love it. But I also think I would like to encourage people. Not that I want to encourage people to commit a felony and go to prison, but I would like to encourage people to maybe open their minds to trying it and get back in touch with themselves. I mean, I felt extremely childlike that first time, and really kind of broke down a lot of these walls I've put around myself, throughout growing up and being an adult and having to do things that I don't want to do, just to survive and pay taxes. So
Right.
I don't know. For me, we all freaking deserve to be our best selves.
That's really interesting. Like, so, um, I mean, so you talk about walls and all this other stuff. Like the way that we, well, let me say this. I've always looked at education as kind of like, well, a lot of people think education is learning things, or putting information into your brain, whether it's, whatever sort of learning. And so you have this matrix concept where, what if you could, just transfer data in there, then you'd be smarter. But I think, in fact, it's really not like that at all. It's not a matter of putting information into your brain. It's when you learn from experiences. Yes, there are memories that are being put in there, but what you're doing is you're shaping the pathways in your brain. Like, if your brain is a maze, you're changing the way that those pathways go. And so you're
Yeah.
as far as your habits, the way you do things, all these other things, you're when you learn, what you're doing is you're creating, you're changing the way you do things, whether you stop and think, or do you just shout out the first thing that comes to mind. You change kind of the way that your brain operates. And so when we do this over time and we hit these like little bumps, like someone, like, we say something and someone shuts us down, or we think that something is not acceptable to be said. And I know some people just have no filter and they don't have that problem at all. But it's like we're shaped by these little things, and we don't even realize it. But if it happens a few times, those walls are up. We're changing the shape of that maze. Those are now our habits to resist saying things. And it sounds like what you're saying is I've seen like some of these brain maps, like is it the MRIs, where they do an MRI of your brain or a CAT scan of your brain while you're on these different psychedelics, and it shows that your brain is actually firing in all different places. And so it makes sense that you would be able to say, okay, look, here are the walls, because now you're being like, your brain is more active into where those walls are, and so you can see them and you can reshape them. And I think, if you look at depression and why people get depressed or why they have anxiety or all these other things, it's all those types of little things that have happened in the past and built up. Some people have anger issues. It's because of that frustration with life. all this stuff. And so if
Agreed.
you can look at that and say, well, here's where the walls are, let me move the walls, it makes total sense that you could fix these problems without, like, psychotropic drugs and all these, painkillers. Yeah, let's just shut your brain down so that you don't think you're depressed. Versus, actually taking down the walls and freeing your own mind. I think that's pretty fascinating. I don't know. Did I describe all that right? Did that make sense at all?
Yeah, total sense. I mean, it actually reminded me of a time. I remember, when I was in school, and of course I went to government indoctrination camp, aka public schools, in Northern Virginia. um, I just remember, I had like a genius level IQ, and I was one of the two smartest kids in my whole school, and but I freaking hated it. I mean, all of it came so easy, but I remember sitting there taking a test, just one of those standardized tests, and I was losing it, like just that fire in my belly, and I just wanted to get up and scream and run around. It came easily for me too, but I wanted to go grab everyone's pencils, throw them down, and say, let's go. You know, 8 years old, third grade. And I kind of, I haven't thought about that in a long time, but I think we probably all spend a good chunk of our childhood feeling that way. And that's really unfortunate. I have quite a few friends who homeschool or unschool their kids. And those are some of the most incredibly smart, happy, well adjusted kids you'll ever meet. I think a lot, so there's everything that you go through in school, and that's a good chunk of your life when you're a kid. And then, like you said, somebody kind of shuts you down or whatever. And when you're a kid, you take it really hard. All those things they do kind of build up walls. And it's unfortunate that we're not really allowed to talk about our feelings or, any of that. I'm not saying we should go around crying all the time, but I should be able to say to you, you're my friend. I should be able to say to you, you know what? That really hurt my feelings. And you would probably be like, dang, I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry. But we just don't live in that kind of a
Yeah.
society anymore. And now we get to ghost people because of Facebook and all
Yeah, that's
that.
like it's almost like that's kind of frowned upon. Like you have the boys don't cry thing, and you have,
Hmm.
you know, guys aren't supposed to talk about it, and which is funny because then someone made a meme about this about how you tell kids like you tell boys they're not supposed to get emotional and talk about their feelings, and then when they get older, their girlfriends and wives are like, you don't talk to me about your feelings. Um,
Right.
so it's kind of the irony in that, and there's some truth to that. Um,
Yeah. Gee, I wonder why.
yeah. So back to the psychedelics. Do you know much about Terrence McKenna?
A little bit. I'm really kind of delving into the research aspect of it. I mean, for me, it was more of a personal journey, but I realize if I'm gonna run for a federal office and talk about this, I'd better educate myself. So, and yeah, I mean, I've always known who he is. So
Yeah,
that's the long answer.
it's. I mean, I started listening to. He's got a bunch of videos on YouTube and some other stuff,
Yeah.
and I mean, it's really fascinating that you know, like so in our society here in the U.S., it's like drugs are bad. Hippies use them to purely recreational, so they can do deviant sexual things all day, and like all these weird things that we're told, but. But there's actually like a really long history of for thousands of years where
Mhm.
people have been like they find natural plants, like there's the cactus from South America, there's in
Mhm.
Africa there's different plants, and so I was listening to Terrence McKenna talk, and he was I don't know how to fact check any of this stuff, but he was giving me at least a pretty interesting story about how psychedelics were very likely the catalyst that turned human beings into the thoughtful people that we are. It kind of
Yeah.
trained us to think and create versus just go out, find food, eat, breed, sleep, and recycle, repeat. So I thought that was all pretty interesting stuff. But he's really got a lot to say about that stuff, and it makes you realize that. I said this with when I may or may not have ever smoked pot for the first or thousandth time, hey, if the government lied to me about this, because this really isn't that bad, what else are they lying to me about? And it goes back to what you were saying about heroin. I can't say that I'd try it, but it's, you have this mentality of, you guys told me that weed was gonna like be as bad as heroin. It's in the same schedule as heroin. So
It is.
so if weed's really not that bad, I guess heroin's really not that bad. And I can see how and I'm not saying it's not, but I could see how somebody who's not as well educated, who, you know, they are young and they just want to experiment and try things, they can say, well, the government lied to me about this. They say the same thing about heroin. I might as well try that. And that actually creates a bigger problem. And you know, with psychedelics, it's the same thing. And I think there's even there's a moderation issue. Like, you know about the microdosing.
Yes.
So you have anything to say about that? Because that's I know very little, but it sounds very interesting.
You know, I haven't done it. I've thought about it, but I do, or I may or may not know some people who do, and they have nothing but great things to say about it. You know, it's just a little bit. You know, they're not tripping balls every day or anything, but it boosts their sense of well-being and makes them appreciate their surroundings more and strive to do and be better. And you know, that's the experience I've read about with a lot of people as well online. So, I mean, I would recommend that over pharmaceuticals,
Right, or binge
you know,
drinking on the
psychotropic
weekends.
drugs or whatever. Yeah, and it's natural. So it just doesn't. I mean, it makes sense. I understand why the government doesn't want us, or the powers that be, not just the government. We know they're just one tentacle of the entire beast, but you know why we shouldn't be thinking for ourselves. That's scary. So,
Right.
but I mean, come on, we're smarter than that. I would like to do it. It just hasn't fit into my lifestyle yet. You know, I would like to have access to those things, but it's a felony. So,
Right. Yeah,
but you know what?
and so for me, it's also been kind of, you know, I hear these stories of people trying LSD and taking the trip that you go on and you never come back, and that's kind of scared me more than like any of the government propaganda of, you know, going to jail or anything like that. It's you know, but at the same time, it's like that's something that I heard and stuck with me since I was a teenager, and now it's like, is that really true? Has that really ever happened to anyone? Or is it only because they abused it and they drank like a gallon of LSD? Or, you know, what's the real story there? And what really sucks about the war on drugs in general is it's impossible if you want, if like you can be you can be like the highest, I don't even know what the highest person is at some like college like Princeton or Harvard or whatever, and say, we want to do medical research. We want to find out what this stuff actually is and what it can do. And it doesn't matter. The government's not going to, like, it doesn't matter who you are, how much power you have. The Rockefellers couldn't do it. Of course, the Rockefellers are probably making sure we can't do it.
Right.
But it's amazing that they're putting so much effort into scaring us not to do something, but at the same time they're putting so much effort into even letting us find out for ourselves through any legitimate channel, any legitimate scientific discovery type program, what the truth about it, what it actually can or can't do. And I've seen things that say, you know, it's possible that it's a cure or at least an inhibitor for Alzheimer's and all these other mental diseases. Because like we said, it
Neurological diseases, yeah,
it makes your brain like function more, like it puts it on turbo. I don't want to say overdrive because it's like, you know, I don't think it burns it up, but it's, you know, it makes it function a little bit better. And that's why, like, I mean, shit, I don't know one stoner who's never said, After smoking a couple times, I think this stuff actually makes me smarter.
Well, some people maybe. I mean, weed also helps with depression. So everybody functions differently. I don't like weed. All my friends tell me that I'm not a real libertarian. I think you've even said that. But I mean, I don't like weed at all. It just makes me sleepy, and I don't like the way I feel when I'm high. I don't like the way my thoughts go, and. But for other people, it serves as like kind of a motivator. So more power to them. I don't give a shit what they do. I don't have to do it.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. It's
You
it's
know?
like it really is. Not everybody likes to go sit on a boat and fish. For some people, it's very therapeutic. For other people, it's like get me the
Right.
hell off of this boat. It's it's not like saying everybody has to do the same thing. But yeah, absolutely. It's if it works for you, you should be able to do it. Um,
Exactly.
so, what else? Do you have anything else up your sleeve as far as your platform um, for running for Congress, or do you have anything as far as your campaign that you're going to be doing? Special events, anything?
I have a couple things in the works, but I don't want to announce them yet in case they don't happen.
All right.
Um,
What
but I
about
hope they will.
websites you want to plug?
Websites I want to plug. Hmm. um, there is actually, funny you should mention, a project that I'm working on with several of my friends and my husband. That's a campaign management website. Um, it's pretty much ready to go, but we're still kind of messing with the email server. But that's called Vara.solutions, VARA.solutions. We are on Facebook as Vara Campaign Management. Um, I am working on that, like I said, with several of my friends. And I I'm also working with Berman Supreme on his run for Attorney General in Kansas, which has been a blast so far. And he's actually filing his paperwork and filing to run tomorrow. So that'll be really cool. I also work with Clayton Hunt on his campaign. We kind of, we work together on each other's campaigns so we can exchange ideas, and we're very similar in a lot of ways, philosophically and methodically, but also different. So we kind of keep each other on our toes, and yeah,
Awesome.
that's it.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
know you know what you're doing. And for anyone watching, if you're thinking about contributing to any type of libertarian candidates, definitely talk to Desarae, because I know. So here's the thing: you get a lot of candidates, and this is kind of what I went through, and I like every other candidate I ever talked to went through the same thing. They convince us into running. We finally get excited about it, and we want to run an active
mm-hmm.
campaign, but we have no idea what the hell to do. Like, we don't like. So what? Do I just go stand on a corner with a sign? Do I go door to door? What do I do? Do I need a petition? Do I need signatures? What? Um, and the party itself is already kind of spread so thin that they're
Yeah,
not a huge help either. So what I really like about what Desiree has been doing is that she's been helping lots and lots of candidates, and she's been working on basically creating an efficient system. Correct me if I'm wrong about any of this, but creating an efficient system to be able to manage all of the things that all of the candidates need, like as far as websites, emails, social media campaigns, um, press releases, all this stuff that none of the candidates want
yeah,
to do, because it's you want to run your campaign. You don't want to have to learn the nuts and bolts. You want to get out and drive the car, right?
right.
And it sucks because that's why our candidates are kind of left behind, is because when you look at the Democrat and the Republican parties, they have the money and the resources to be able to say, oh well, let's just give this guy, we have a pool of campaign managers, which let's just pick one for each candidate, and they'll go take care of it. And
Right.
and they have the resources to do that. Meanwhile, we're sitting here like trying to figure out, okay, like the IKEA version of, okay, what goes in here and where's the other bolt for this. And so what Desarae does is basically say, no, forget that. Forget trying to put the furniture together. You guys go out and campaign, and we'll take care of all the nuts and bolts and things that you really don't need to worry about, because that's the mechanical operational stuff. That's not you and your campaign. You need to be out there being seen, coming on the Taxation and Theft live show, doing whatever you can to get your face and your principles in front of people so that you can get elected. And so Desarae's business is basically doing all the behind the scenes stuff to help him really make that happen.
Yeah, and I have plenty of time to do that. So I know it does sound insane, but especially when we kind of multiply our efforts, and
it's also like when you specialize, when you're able to specialize in something and do it over and over again, it's a lot easier than if you have to train 20 people to do it. And then of course, like, they don't get it the first time, so you got to retrain them, and now you're spending all your time training people. And then especially if they get tired of it, and then because a lot of candidates do, they're like, okay, that was fun, but I really don't have the patience for that. I can't do it again next year. Now you got to start with new candidates. It really sucks.
Yeah, and I mean, candidates, volunteers, they wind up doing a lot of this stuff along with the guidance and the help of the candidate. And I like that we have hands-on candidates. I respect them for that, but I feel like, we have so few volunteers that are spread so thin across so many campaigns and different, initiatives, or working with the state party, or on staff, or on the executive committee, in whatever capacity. We need to make the most of each of these candidates and these volunteers. So if there's an inexpensive way to help candidates, have a professional, clean website, have, data management, have fundraising, all that stuff that they don't have to worry about, and they and their volunteers can go spread themselves out at different events, great. I mean, let's do it. So I really, I think that the tides are kind of turning for us, where people are going to be more receptive to our message in 2018 and in 2020. So I'd like to see our candidates take full advantage of that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up for today, but it's been really great talking with you, and hopefully we'll have you back, and we can hear about all the campaigns that you're working on, and hopefully we'll have a lot. I know we're going to have a lot more success this year, because it seems like every other year when we do this, it's we just get better at it, because we are learning and we get better results. So, but yeah, we'll definitely talk to you kind of throughout the election year, and I know you definitely have your finger on the pulse of which candidates are the good candidates in Texas. So that's always good to know too.
We've got some really good ones too, like great ones. So yay!
Who's your favorite so far this year?
Oh wow, there are several.
Is that a bad question to ask? Everyone's gonna be like, "Why didn't you pick me?"
Well, are you running for something statewide in Texas?
No, I'm not. But I mean, like, everyone's, Clayton especially, because like whoever you pick, Clayton's gonna be like, he's not even a real libertarian.
But I think Kerry McKinnon obviously deserves a plug. I mean, that, he works his butt off. Matt Savino is running in my House district, and I mean, I'm going to be really proud to cast that vote, and really proud to back him up in any way I can. I mean, he's been out there already campaigning for months and months and months before the nomination, so I respect that deeply. And you should definitely, I know you just had Kerry, but definitely have Matt Savino on your show. He's really interesting, and he has a unique perspective on some issues that a lot of libertarians don't talk about very often. So
awesome. I'll definitely check it out.
I will leave you with that.
All right. So before we go, let me ask you a question. What is taxation?
It is theft.
Good answer. All right. I'll catch you guys